Yes, man. I have a few of those planned too. I got a few of those planned because those are some of my favorites. Okay, here we go. Here we go. More probs, definitely forwards. This one's between because you have two values. Yes, you have two values. Left bound negative 1.33. Right bound is the other one, the negative 0.67. Now watch the curve that comes up. It's going to look just like the one we drew over there. I mean, you could actually, if I could fit it over there, it's too big. But it lays right on top of it. I should have drawn on this board. Say that again. Say why.
Did you round?
Why yours looks different? Did you put the same values in?
I put
Hold on so I can see. Hold on so I can see. Did you put negative 4/3 and negative 2/3 in? Oh, there you go.
Did you round up?
6, 7, and did you get a slightly different answer?
I put minus 0.66.
Oh, so you got a little bit more area.
I got 0.16,
yeah,
29.
I'm going to call that 16%.
Right.
Which you would too, yes?
Yeah.
So what this tells me, friends, is 16% of people are dull normal. That's all. That's 1 in 6 people that you meet are dull normal, IQ-wise. Remember, this... Say that again. Now remember, friends, it's a probability. If you select someone at random from this population, there's a 16% chance they're dull normal.
So it's not mean to call them.
But now random's cluster.
Maybe.
Right?
Depends on what a moron, I forget what moron's defined as. Say that again?
The random's you said a cluster. So it
Right, maybe random's. But think about this though. Think about this too. Remember this, don't ever forget this. This curve is symmetric, right? Which means
16% fall between
110 and 120. There's also 16% over there, aren't there? There's also 16% over there, aren't there? It's a symmetric curve. Now, I think that's called bright normal, I think, because that's the other side of the coin, so to speak, IQ-wise. But all these ranges, they change over time, for one. And they also change names, not just numbers, but also names. But there is a symmetry there. So 1 out of every 3 people that you run into on the street falls into one of those 2 ranges. Pretty neat, huh? Pretty neat.
So it means like 5 of us here don't know.
Well, you're applying it literally. Remember what it means. It means on average, over a long period, a long sample. So if you apply it literally to this class, it's funny. I had the same discussion in 105 this morning. They're learning about probabilities right now. They're just starting to get their feet wet probability, and we were talking about flipping 2 coins. And they figured out pretty quickly that if you flip 2 coins, there's 4 outcomes. Heads, 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 tails, tails, heads, or tails, tails. And we were simulating them after a while, and I caught them. They were getting the idea that it groups. Like some kids were going tails, 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 tails. Like, what the hell? My coins broke. I'm like, last week they're like, oh, randomless clusters. And they remember. But then I simulated it on the TI, and I went boom, and it went heads, heads, boom, heads, tails, boom, tails, heads. And I caught somebody that go, bet on tails, tails. So why would you do that? And they said, because you already saw heads, 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 tails, and tails, heads. I'm like, does the coin know that?
That's kind of like play that machine. It's about ready to.
Play that. Say it again, Alicia, please.
Play that machine. It's gonna.
It's due. The table's hot. The dice are due. These statements have no meaning because the dice don't remember what they just did. They just did something, but they have no idea what they did. Well, first of all, because they're dead. But secondly, because they don't care, because they're a random machine. And just to prove the point, I said, I bet on 2 heads. And I hit it. It wasn't 2 heads, of course. Because betting on any one thing is 25% likely, but it was not 2 tails either. And that was the point. I had 3-to-1 odds against 2 tails. Because it's random. But it's so easy for human beings to fall into that trap, right? My son understands it fairly well. The poor kid has to live with me. But if we're playing life together and he's spinning that dial that goes 1 to 10, and he doesn't see 10 for a while, he starts going, I need a 10, I need a 10, I need a 10. I'm like, buddy, you know better. He's like, what? I'm like, whatever, you're 7. Enjoy the ignorance while you can. Fair enough. Faith, you had a question?
No, I was just going to say. Is that just because our mind likes to have everything organized?
I think it's compartmentalization. And if you think about it, being random is probably the worst survival technique a living organism can have.
This wouldn't be random because, like you were going to say, this classroom, because we're all in school.
Totally. The sampling is already biased. The sampling is already biased. The sampling. Now, Alicia, what you've done quite correctly, I think, too, is you've drawn a correlation between IQ and education. which may or may not be true. I still don't exactly know what intelligence is. I'm gonna let that go. I understand we have to talk about this and talk about it later. I think it's a good correlation. I'm sure there is a strong correlation there. Good. I'm sure of it. I'm almost positive, right? I'm Gesundheit. Just by the fact that you guys have learned how to question things would mean I would not be surprised if you guys all significantly increased an IQ score that you've never taken before. Just because you would know how to reason through problems that are non-standard now. Yeah.
I actually took an IQ test before going back to college.
You're kidding me.
In order to take one afterwards.
Interesting. How'd you do? Did it go up?
Well, I'm not done yet.
Oh, you're still taking. I love this. If you don't mind sharing the day when you've done, that'd be fantastic, man. I'd love that. Yeah, I encourage you guys. There's all kinds of free ones online you can do. They're very, very fun.
14, you know.
What's that? It depends on what intelligence is. I have to know what the target is before I know how to shoot at it.
No, but how do you know how accurate the test
You
is?
see what I'm saying? I have to know what the target I'm shooting for is until I know whether my rifle's hitting it or not. See, when you say how accurate an intelligence test is, an accuracy of a test means whatever intelligence is, the test is accurately measuring it. Correct? So for example, if the test was, can you play a paradiddle at 60 BPM?
Yes. On the radio, man.
Got it, right? So, but I know what the pattern is, right? The pattern is a paradiddle. Can you be intelligent? Well, I don't know what intelligent is. It's not as simple as a paradiddle or an A chord on a guitar, or can I shift gears on a mountain bike? Like I can watch that and observe. Oh, it just happened. Okay, it's done. What's intelligence? It becomes an open and subjective question. So I can't answer that question because I don't know what the target looks like, and so therefore I can't shoot at it. Is that fair? I'm not trying to be slippery. I'm saying this is how slippery intelligence is.
But you can base it off of like a criteria.
I love using it. Okay. I love the. Did you hear what Riley's question was? Very quiet. Then why do we measure it? I have no good answer for that. But we do measure it, and they are brazen enough to give me parameters. So hell yeah, let's have some fun with it. I mean, it's used. It's used. It's used. I'm not saying it's used well. I'm not saying it's used poorly. I'm saying it's used. And now you guys at least understand how to use it and how to use the scales attached to it.
Because it's a start.
And whatever the start is, sure.
But who determined the start and who determined the
Ask
goal?
Andrea. You're asking the dude that doesn't study this stuff.
Why not just shoot the rifle and drop the circle?
No, Riley, I'm not trying to be slippery. I'm pleading ignorance. I don't know the answers to that question. That becomes a psychology question. It becomes an Andrea Ortle question. And she knows the answer, I'm sure.
Is it 4?
I'm not trying to be slippery. I swear to God I'm not. I don't also want to make something up to give you an answer that's not necessarily accurate. Is that fair? Good. Thank you, sister. Faith, what's on your mind back there? Are you sure? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go.
When we run the police fire and corrections testing,
Okay.
none of the questions are right or wrong. It gives you 4 scenario questions. Like it gives you a scenario and then gives you 4 possible answers. And then like question 4, 12, 24, 36,
Oh, interesting.
80, all grouped together. And depending upon how you answered
Those 5.
will depict what kind of personality you are.
Now that's an interesting test design question. I've noticed that too when I do certain questionnaires for whatever. Sometimes students ask me to do it. They'll put a similar question scattered throughout a questionnaire and look for a correlation in your answers. It's very interesting. Sometimes I think that questionnaires get too long, hundreds of questions long, and I begin to fade as I go through them. Like, oh my God, what did I say? I forget what I said, but I can make it up this time. So I like that. But that, again, is outside my area of expertise. I've never really studied that kind of a test making thing. Oh, that's totally badass. Totally. But you're getting by measuring something else. Have you guys ever seen, stop me in 5 minutes to go. I want to show you a fun video I just read about. I haven't seen it in a long time. I was reading Deep Survival. It's a great book, Who Lives, Who Dies, and Why. And it's analyzing things like people that get lost in the woods. Who walks out after being lost in the woods for a week? Who walks out besides Bear Grylls? Who walks out and why? So we'll come back to that. Remind me at 5 till, we'll stop and go back to that. Riley, go. Or Alicia, it was you. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, so is that similar to when you take those personality tests for like extrovert, introvert?
Sounds like it.
Feeling?
You show more character, and that's what Joanne was saying. It's one of the measures, it's a characteristic measure, right? If it shows this, and this, I think so. But what experts have done is they've said, okay, if people, there's a thing called a logistic regression. I'm going to deviate a smidge from this because I think it's what you're getting at, Alicia. There's a type of curve. If you have me at 105, I think we may have talked about this in 105. Logistic curves look like this. They're kind of S-shaped. and they hover around two values, generally 0 and 1. And what there are lots of data points that go into generating a position on that curve. So you might term this extrovert, whatever, and you might term this introvert. And what you do is you measure a number of characteristics, feed them through a logistic regression calculator like you guys did in 105. If it places you closer to this side of the curve, you're more introverted. Closer to this side, it's more extroverted. The same model is also used to see if businesses are going to fail or make it. Fail. If your variables you're measuring, if you trust the measurements, land closer to that, your business is more likely to make it. Closer to this, more likely not to make it. I helped Justin Borowski, I don't know if you guys know J-Bo, he teaches here, working on his PhD. He was doing hostage negotiations. A number of variables going in a hostage negotiation. Did the hostages live or die? I used the exact same tool to identify certain characteristics that were more likely to affect the outcome. Why would you do this? Because if the outcomes are affected by a variable, you pay attention to them. But if that variable has little to no effect, you don't pay attention to it. For example, if pleading with the hostage taker has no effect, then you don't plead. If it has no positive outcome for the hostage, but if threatening the hostage taker does have an effect, you then either do it or don't do it, depending on where that variable affects. Very, very interesting stuff, all rooted in what we're doing right now. It changes the curve, though. It's not a bell curve anymore. It doesn't come back down. It asymptotically chases 0 and 1. Pretty rad stuff. It's pretty rad stuff, but that goes back to what Joe and Alicia were just saying. Now, that gets a little bit beyond what we're doing right now, and that's okay. I love it that you're bringing it up, even, because it's very, very interesting mathematics and very, very useful. But that's like kind of the next step of inferential stat, which is kind of fun. Fair?